Enneagram Fours are emotional seekers, driven to find their personal significance and that which they feel is missing in their lives. While they deeply desire connection and meaning, they often withhold themselves from others due to feeling vulnerable or defective. This creates a paradox where they push away the very things that could fulfill them. Fours possess an extraordinary gift for understanding emotional depths. They're like emotional archaeologists, exploring uncomfortable feelings that others might avoid. Their natural ability to see beauty in darkness and find meaning in melancholy makes them uniquely creative and deeply empathetic. These sensitive souls have an uncanny talent for reading emotional undercurrents between people, and at their best, they express this through emotional honesty and creative expression. However, their emotional sensitivity can be both a blessing and a curse.
I have told you repeatedly not to disturb me when I am working.
While it gives them profound insight, they can also become so immersed in their inner emotional world that they lose sight of objective reality. To cope with feelings of being different or an outcast, they might embrace their uniqueness as a defense mechanism, sometimes becoming disdainful and deeply jealous of others, to the point of causing others to suffer in order to alleviate their own inner pain. Today we're going to be digging into how to use the Enneagram 4 personality type when creating characters. Whether you're writing a novel, screenplay, short story, video game, or any expression of story, the Enneagram is an ancient philosophy connecting human behavior with human beliefs, and it has been an absolute game changer for me as a writer. So if you want to make your characters more relatable, flawed, human, and real, keep watching. This is part 4 of a 9-part video series breaking down the Enneagram. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Abby and I help writers make their stories matter and make their author dreams come true. And if that's something you're on a mission to do, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel. I post writing videos every Wednesday and I would love to have you here in the community. The overarching fatal flaw for the type 4 is, if I'm not special, I'm not important. Though this need to be special, the seeds of doubt that planted it, and the goals that stem from it can vary greatly depending on the individual. It's important to note that every 4 expresses their need for individuality in a different way. Some 4s might outrun their sense of lack by becoming a self-sacrificial supporter of others, repressing their own needs to belong, while other 4s might become dramatic, expressive artists or aristocrats who put themselves on a pedestal because they don't truly feel important until they've proven just how unique and special they are. The greatest vice of a type 4 is envy. The 4's core belief is that everything they need and value lies somewhere outside their reach. They desperately want love and affection, but at the same time they feel ashamed for needing it so much. And at the heart of all this turmoil is this misbelief that they're fundamentally flawed or that they're missing some important thing that would make them lovable or worthy of love. This often leads them to expect rejection or abandonment, which often creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. All of this stems from their past, where they likely experienced some loss or a sense of abandonment. Type 4s tend to blame themselves for painful experiences in their past, thinking like, if only I was better, if only I was different, if only I had been more lovable, maybe this wouldn't have happened. It's their way of trying to make sense of a situation that really doesn't make sense at all. But here's the dangerous part. By focusing so much on what they've lost or what they're missing, they actually make it harder to receive that love and connection that they long for. Instead of moving forward, they get caught in this cycle of dwelling on their pain and melancholy. It becomes like a security blanket, uncomfortable but familiar. They're constantly searching for that perfect, idealized connection that will finally make them feel whole, all while carrying this deep belief that they're somehow fundamentally flawed.
You really love me? Of course I do. Nobody's ever loved me for as long as I can remember.
The Type 4's main defense mechanism is introjection, which basically means taking external criticisms and turning them inward. Think of it like this. If someone important in their life criticizes them, they internalize that voice so much until it becomes their own inner critic. It's the 4's way of trying to maintain control, but at the same time, it turns them into their own worst enemy. This is why 4s often feel different. They feel like the outcast, the misfit, the one who doesn't belong. And they almost use being different and unique as a way to protect themselves against emotional pain. In short, the 4's driving internal conflict is their desire to be unique and special, so they can avoid the pain of feeling defective and finally get the love and acceptance they've always longed for. Okay, now let's look at some of the character strengths and weaknesses of the Type 4. First, intense creativity. 4s are often artists. Painters, poets, musicians, writers. They are naturally creative and often feel a deep, intrinsic need to express themselves through art. They have this amazing superpower to be able to turn everyday, mundane, ordinary things into pure magic. They can find beauty and meaning in small details that most people overlook. However, their creativity isn't always tied to happiness. They're not optimistic all the time. In fact, they can find inspiration and beauty in pain and in suffering and in melancholy, in things that maybe are like really difficult times of life that they're going through. They can find inspiration in that.
Sometimes they say I'm mad, but a grain of madness is the best of art.
Some of their biggest creative breakthroughs come from diving headlong into those darker emotions, which brings us to the next flaw of this character, and that is focus on suffering. 4s often believe that suffering makes them more worthy of love. And this leads them into a toxic loop of seeking out painful experiences in relationships. It's like they're following this unwritten rule that says, the more I hurt, the more deserving I am. Think of like the starving artist who is like suffering for his art, or the romantic poet who is always pining over somebody that he can't have. Sometimes they'll even use one type of pain to distract themselves from a deeper type of pain that they're trying to avoid. Another strength is emotional intelligence. 4s are incredibly intuitive, with a almost supernatural ability to pick up on the feelings of others. Because they're so in tune with their own emotions, they naturally have a gift for understanding what other people are going through and relating to them. And because of this, they can make amazing friends. They are like the friend that will sit you down and say, okay, I know something's wrong, like get it off your chest. I'm here to listen and help you get through this. And they will never shy away from those bigger or more messy emotions.
I can never lead a normal life now. Yes, you can. Underneath all your prickles, you really are a kindred spirit.
However, sometimes they can feel burdened and weighed down by the emotional drain of having to take on everyone else's feelings. Another weakness of the Type 4 is inferior self-image. The 4's inferior self-image almost works as a defense mechanism. When they believe that they're not good enough, it's like they're already predicting that they'll be rejected and they're protecting themselves from being hurt by that. However, this emotional protection, these emotional walls that they build up, actually makes them deeply unhappy over time.
What do you see?
I see a skinny little nobody with no past and no future.
Some 4s will even lash out and sabotage the happiness of others, because if everyone else is brought down to this level of pain, then they won't feel so vulnerable there. But this destructive pattern only reinforces their feelings of unworthiness and isolation. Because our personality is so shaped by our early life experiences, we can often find clues in our past to how we became the person we are today. So if you're writing a character who is a Type 4, it's important to look to their past and look to their childhood to see what might have happened back then to turn them into this personality with this set of beliefs. What made them adopt this fatal flaw and internal conflict? Here are some good starters for that, some childhood conflicts that might turn a person into a Type 4. Being the different sibling in a family that valued conformity and traditional success. Growing up with emotionally unavailable parents who ignored their needs. Experiencing early loss or abandonment from a caregiver. being labeled as too sensitive or dramatic by family members, having artistic or creative talents overlooked in favor of more conventional skills, being compared to siblings or peers at a young age, or experiencing a traumatic event that led to feeling fundamentally different from others. Of course, other childhood conflicts could shape a person into a type 4, so this is not an exhaustive list, but it's a good place to start when you're brainstorming your character's past to see what could shape them into the person they are today. Now that we have a good understanding of the Enneagram Type 4, let's break it down even more into the 3 subtypes. In Enneagram philosophy, each of the 9 types has 3 subtypes based on primary instincts: self-preservation, social belonging, and sexual or one-to-one bonding. Of course, everyone has all 3 of these instincts, but depending on which one is dominant, your personality will express itself very differently. Before I knew about the Enneagram subtypes, I had always heard the Enneagram described in terms of healthy, average, and unhealthy. But I think this is kind of a limiting view of personality because nobody is 100% healthy or 100% unhealthy, right? We all have a mixture of good and bad, vices and virtues, positive traits and negative traits, and that's what makes a character feel realistic and feel human. So your characters are going to have these vices and virtues as well, have this bright side and this shadow side. So that's why I decided when I made this Enneagram series to break each subtype down into 2 sides, the bright side and the shadow side. So we're gonna look at each subtype and break it down into these 2 categories to see how your character could improve and grow towards a place of enlightenment in a positive character arc, or how they might take a negative character arc and their shadow self could consume them. Self-preservation 4s, the Maverick, or the Outcast. On their bright side, self-preservation 4s are true empaths with a gift for enduring and alleviating suffering. While they experience the same depth of feeling and envy as other 4s, they've mastered the art of quiet resilience. In other words, they've learned to endure their pain without making a dramatic show of it. These 4s have basically accepted their role as an outsider, and they've gotten pretty comfortable in their self-imposed exile. In fact, they've become so self-reliant that they've created their own little world where they can thrive independently. Maverick 4s still feel everything deeply, all the sensitivity, shame, and longing that comes from being a 4, but they've developed this incredible capacity to shoulder it alone. They're often drawn to humanitarian causes, pouring their empathy into helping others while maintaining their emotional fortress.
Oh, there must be some way I can... Wait! Take me instead.
And while their tendency to endure difficult situations might look like masochism from the outside, it actually comes from this deep-seated belief that by being strong and resilient, they'll finally earn the love and acceptance they've always craved. A good character example of the Maverick 4 is Jane from Jane Eyre. From early childhood, Jane is treated as an outsider, unloved by her cruel aunt, Mrs. Reed, who tells her that she was born bad and excludes her from the warmth of the family.
Jane Eyre?
She's not part of the family.
This early emotional exile shapes Jane's deepest belief that she is fundamentally unworthy of love and that she'll never belong anywhere. Like many self-preservation 4s, Jane learns to suppress her pain, building a self-reliant inner world where she survives through quiet resilience, artistic creativity, and a strong moral compass. Even when she finds employment at Thornfield Hall, her position as a governess leaves her caught between the servants and the upper class, which only reinforces her feeling of being an outcast, especially when Mr. Rochester's wealthy friends look down their noses at her.
But you have a governess, I see. There, hiding behind the screen. Now that's expensive, we have to feed them both.
Slowly but surely, Jane and Rochester forge a deep friendship, and when he finally confesses his love, Jane can hardly believe that someone could truly want her.
Jane, have you no faith in me?
None whatsoever.
You doubt me?
Absolutely.
Jane, you know I don't love Blanche. I love you. Like my own flesh.
Jane is finally happy for a minute, until her wedding day when she discovers Rochester's secret. that he already has a wife, a lunatic, who has been living in the house this whole time. This discovery devastates Jane, not just because it's a betrayal of her trust, but it's a confirmation of her deepest fears, that she is destined to be abandoned and unloved. True to her type, she chooses to walk away quietly but with dignity, embarking on a journey of self-discovery. Only after healing her wounded heart and finding her own sense of worth can she return to Rochester, finally understanding that his love for her had been real all along, and that she deserves to be loved just as she is.
Your life is not yours to give up. It is mine. All mine, and I forbid it.
When the shadow takes over, however, self-preservation fours go from being the Maverick to the Outcast. Self-preservation fours are different from the other subtypes in that they keep all their pain bottled up. They still feel that deep need to suffer, thinking it'll somehow make them more worthy of love, but they do it quietly. They're masters at pushing down their envy and dealing with way more frustration than they should. It's like they've swung so far in the opposite direction that suffering in silence has become their superpower. But this can be pretty toxic, especially when you get so used to the stress and pressure that you don't know how to function without it. When things get really dark, Outcast fours can spiral into self-destruction, letting their feelings of shame and unworthiness consume them and leave them hopeless and without anyone to support them. A good example of this shadow side taking over is Lady Deadlock from Bleak House. On the outside, she appears poised, elegant, and untouchable, but beneath the surface, she hides a secret that still haunts her. Once a passionate young woman, Lady Deadlock made a decision that society deemed unforgivable. She had a child out of wedlock. Rather than confront this pain or seek forgiveness, she buries it deep, becoming a master of silent endurance. But when her husband's ruthless lawyer, Mr. Tulkinghorn, uncovers the truth, he begins to subtly blackmail her, threatening to expose her secret and destroy her reputation. Lady Deadlock doesn't lash out or seek allies. True to her type, she retreats further inward, believing she must bear the shame alone. Her silence, pride, and internalized guilt isolate her from those who might help, including Esther, the daughter she never stopped loving.
Must never see each other again. I've only just found you. Don't send me away now. I must.
The situation escalates when Tulkinghorn is murdered, and suspicion falls upon Lady Deadlock. Overwhelmed by guilt and the fear of disgrace, she flees, leaving behind a letter confessing her past and expressing her intent to disappear.
You know my secret now. And of course, our life together is over. I will encumber you no more.
She's later found dead from exposure at the gates of a cemetery, alone and friendless. Her tragic character arc is a heartbreaking illustration of the Outcast Four, someone who longs to be seen and loved, but believes at her core that she is too broken to be saved. Next up, social fours, the Idealist, or the Imposter. Unlike self-preservation fours who hide their envy and shame, social fours wear their heart on their sleeve, broadcasting their dissatisfaction and feelings of lack to the world.
This has dampened any spark of ambition. I shall never write another story again.
On their bright side, Idealist fours possess an extraordinary depth of imagination and empathy. They experience life's emotions intensely, finding beauty and meaning in both joy and melancholy. These fours have a gift for expressing their inner world and seeing the romantic potential in everyday moments. Idealist fours often believe that by sharing their authentic emotional experiences, including their pain, they might finally receive the understanding and unconditional love that they crave. While this vulnerability can lead to profound connections, it can also leave them overly dependent on others for emotional validation. Though they present themselves as warm, soft, and approachable in social settings, they may later need private time to process and release the emotions they've held back. They may even need time to wallow in their sadness a bit, which can make it incredibly irritating when someone encourages them to lighten up or just be happy.
Happy Eleanor, you have no idea of what I suffer.
A good character example of the Idealist Four is Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables. Anne is the embodiment of the social four at her best. emotionally vibrant, deeply imaginative, and endlessly expressive. From the moment she arrives at Green Gables, Anne stands out not only for her fiery red hair and temper,
How dare you!
but for her poetic soul and intense emotional sensitivity. She loves to romanticize the world around her, finding beauty in the smallest details.
That's Barry's pond.
Oh no. This is the Lake of Shining Waters. That's its rightful name.
Like many healthy social fours, Anne feels her emotions deeply and isn't afraid to share them, even when others find her dramatic or overly sensitive.
Plum puffs won't minister to a mind diseased and a world that is crumbled into pieces.
However, her vulnerability becomes her strength. It draws people in, forms deep friendships, and inspires empathy and wonder in those around her. Anne's desire to belong and be loved, especially after growing up orphaned and unwanted, is at the core of her character. But instead of hardening her heart, it makes her more compassionate. Through her open heart and whimsical imagination, she transforms Green Gables into a home, turns Marilla and Matthew into family, and inspires everyone she touches. When their shadow side takes over, however, social fours go from being the idealist to the imposter. Consumed by their envy, they become trapped in a cycle of constant comparison and self-deprecation. They become hyper-focused on their perceived inadequacies, letting shame and jealousy color their worldview. These fours might believe they're perpetually overlooked or misunderstood, yearning for recognition of their uniqueness, while simultaneously believing they don't deserve it.
It's as if there are two of you. One who's kind and gentle, and a secret self that no one is allowed to know or question.
Rather than taking action to improve their situation, they might retreat into melodrama, using their emotional suffering as a shield against real courage. They often internalize their pain, rather than expressing it outwardly, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of isolation. This tendency to swallow their own poison only deepens their sense of alienation from social groups and society. At their worst, imposter fours can become vengeful and calculating, scheming to steal what others have and claim it as their own, all while feeling entitled to the privileges of others because they believe they deserve it more. A good example of this shadow side taking over is Antonio Salieri from the film Amadeus. From the outset, Salieri longs to serve God through music, pledging a life of virtue in exchange for divine talent.
Make me famous through the world, dear God. Make me immortal.
But when Mozart arrives, brash and immature, yet undeniably brilliant, Salieri is confronted with his worst fear, that God has chosen someone else, someone he deems unworthy to carry the genius he so desperately craved. Rather than expressing this pain openly or striving to improve, Salieri turns inward, his shame and envy festering into bitterness. He becomes obsessed with Mozart's effortless talent, comparing it to his own mediocrity and constantly falling short in his own eyes.
Unstoppable. Making my defeat more bitter with every passing bar.
In classic social four fashion, he sees himself as tragically misunderstood and unfairly passed over, which allows him to justify his calculated scheme to destroy the one he envies most. Under the guise of support, Salieri manipulates Mozart into emotional and financial ruin, all while hiding behind a mask of friendship. In doing so, he not only contributes to Mozart's downfall, but becomes a hollow shell of himself, his envy consuming any remaining trace of joy, purpose, or creativity he once had. Salieri's arc is the social four's dark descent, a gifted man undone by his belief that if he can't be a genius, he must destroy anyone who is. And last but not least, sexual fours, the Aristocrat, or the Saboteur. While the self-preservation four buries their envy, the social four suffers dramatically with their envy, the sexual four copes with their envy by being competitive and making others suffer. By competing against and deflating those who seem to have more than them, aristocrat fours can temporarily soothe their deep-seated feelings of lack. Unlike other subtypes, These fours aren't particularly concerned with maintaining a specific image or being liked. Instead, they often come off as arrogant and superior, even while harboring an underlying sense of inferiority. Hence the name Aristocrat.
If I had any betters in this world, Bearacres Hall is the last place I should expect to find them.
While social fours might be called the sad fours, sexual fours are the mad fours, transforming their pain and anger into a defense mechanism. Their core motivation revolves around refusing to feel pain. That's why they strive to become extraordinary, cultivating an aura of specialness and superiority to attract what they believe they're missing. A good character example of the Aristocrat Four is Lady Mary from Downton Abbey. While she presents a cool, confident exterior, Mary is plagued by a deep sense of inner lack that she refuses to face. Instead of sitting in her sadness like a social four or burying it like a self-preservation four, Mary transforms her pain into sharp competitiveness and superiority.
You think yourself so superior, don't you?
She doesn't need to be liked, she needs to win, and she needs to feel special. Her rivalry with her sister Edith is the clearest window into her subtype. Mary consistently belittles Edith, undermines her accomplishments, and even flirts with a man Edith fancies, not out of love, but out of envy.
Even you can't take every prize. Is that a challenge?
Later, when Edith finds the man of her dreams, Mary lashes out by exposing her sister's secret love child, not because it affects Mary's life, but because she can't bear to see Edith receive the very thing she wants.
You don't want to understand me.
You ruined Edith's life today. How many lives are you going to wreck just to smother your own misery?
I refuse to listen.
You're a coward, Mary. Like all bullies, you're a coward.
Mary eventually has a redemptive character arc and realizes that her bad behavior was rooted in her own pain and her refusal to be vulnerable.
I don't know why I did it. Not really.
I've told you. Because you were unhappy, so you wanted me to be unhappy too.
At the end of the series, she makes amends with Edith and begins to truly open herself to love again. The ups and downs of Mary's character arc really illustrate how when the shadow side takes over, sexual fours can go from being the aristocrat to the saboteur. Plagued by a jealous need to compete and win in order to feel significant, they quickly descend into treacherous behavior, doing whatever it takes to claim the distinction they feel is rightfully theirs. These fours take criticism as a personal affront, seeing it as proof that others don't recognize their uniqueness. Rather than wallowing in shame, they strike back by diminishing others' achievements and inflating their own. Sometimes they'll even orchestrate situations where others fail, just to feel better about themselves. At their worst, they can become tyrannical and controlling, manipulating others into showing them the respect they feel they deserve. But despite their entitled, arrogant exterior, Saboteur fours feel deeply defective, consumed by the fear that they will always be seen as the outcast, the reject, the one who doesn't belong. A good example of this shadow side taking over is Loki from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Beneath his sharp wit and theatrical swagger lies a deep, festering envy, not just for Thor's popularity, but for something more existential, a place to belong. Loki's core longing isn't for the throne itself, but for validation. In the first Thor movie, all Loki wants is to be king of Asgard, but not for the sake of the realm or its people, only for the sake of proving himself worthy. But everything changes when Loki makes a shocking discovery. He is not Odin's son after all, but the son of a frost giant.
So I am no more than another stolen relic, locked up here until you might have use of me.
Why'd you twist my words?
You could have told me what I was from the beginning. Why didn't you?
This revelation shatters Loki's world and feeds into his greatest misbelief, that he is different from everyone else, an outsider, a monster, not worthy to be king. This misbelief clashes violently with his deep desire to be chosen, seen, and admired. Rather than confronting his pain, Loki sabotages those around him. He manipulates others into accepting his hostile takeover, orchestrates betrayals, and schemes to make Thor suffer as he has.
Why have you done this?
To prove to Father that I am the worthy son. When he wakes, I will have saved his life. I will have destroyed that race of monsters, and I will be true heir to the throne.
As Loki descends into corruption, he becomes more disdainful, envious, and desperate. He has opportunities to defeat his misbelief, but instead, he makes fear-based decisions, laying the groundwork for his own destruction. In the end, he battles Thor and loses, falling into the abyss of space. So if you are writing an Enneagram Type 4 and you want to make them feel layered and complex and human and real, and not just like an archetype pulled out of a personality typing quiz, here are some good brainstorm prompts to get you started. Ask yourself, what childhood conflicts did my character experience that made them mistakenly believe they had to be special in order to be loved? What does the idea of belonging mean to them? Was there a moment in their past when they suffered loss, rejection, or abandonment? How has their individuality helped them to build up emotional walls and protect themselves from pain? How do their weaknesses, jealousy, focus on suffering, insecurity, shame, trip them up and keep them from achieving true happiness? What is their fatal flaw or misbelief, and why is it personal to them? What ultimate truth or aha moment are they going to have in order to transform as a character? I've also created a companion guide to writing an Enneagram Type 4, including all of the key takeaways from this video, as well as the character examples and the brainstorm prompts and everything that we talked about. So you can click the link below this video to get access to that PDF guidebook. Remember, this is an ongoing series, so we still have 5 more Enneagram types to explore. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below this video so that you stay updated and make sure you don't miss the next Enneagram installment. Smash that like button while you're down there and leave a comment and let me know, are you writing an Enneagram 4 character in your novel? Or maybe you are an Enneagram 4. If so, let me know if you could relate to this video and relate to any of these character examples today. I would love to hear about your work in progress. And if you missed the first 3 videos that I did in this series breaking down the Enneagram Type 1, 2, and 3, you can check that out right here by clicking this playlist. I will see you over there, and I will see you in the next Enneagram breakdown video. Until then, my friend, rock on. Shh.